Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Theravada Buddhism series, Dhamma talk number 55. Function or jobs of consciousness. Kicca. K-I-C-C-A. Kicca is a Pali word. It is translated as function. What kicca means is things need to do. So I use the word job. We all have jobs and we always need to do. There are 89, in detail 121 different kinds of consciousness, and each has a specific job to do. Each consciousness arises, performs its jobs or function, kicca, and disappears. And immediately after that, seamlessly followed by another consciousness to do its own job. There are 14 different types of jobs for consciousness to do. Just imagine like a car assembly line and a factory. There are many stations to perform pre-programmed jobs. Some station put the wheels, some station put the doors, and so on. And each station may require one worker or many workers as necessary. Just like that, there are 14 different job stations for consciousness, and a certain type of consciousness work or do their job at a different station. The first job is to join or link the last and the present existence. Joining the last existence or life and this current present existence or life, joining it. That's one job. So the function is relinking, also known as rebirth. In Pali, paticchande. So the function is to relink. Rebirth is relinking consciousness, some mental factors, cetasika, and some material properties or qualities. All three arises at the point of conception. That is called rebirth. Not when a child comes out of the womb. Rebirth takes place at the point of conception. It belongs to a resultant consciousness category, vipaka citta, and this rebirth is the result of karma. And in this relinking process, space does not affect the joining of the last consciousness of past life and the first relinking consciousness of the present life. Let's imagine here on this planet, we human live here on this planet, and let's say Brahma Ram, I don't know somewhere far, far away in the galaxy. Huge distance, many light years away. But the moment a yogi who had attained jhana passed away with jhana, died on this planet Earth, and instantly, seamlessly reborn in a Brahma realm, which is billions and billions of light years away. That's what it means by space have no effect. As soon as one life ceased, another life appears, and there's no time gap in between. It is just like you have one thought and there's a next thought. One thought disappears, another thought arises seamlessly. Just like that, a consciousness disappear or ceased and reappear in the another existed, whatever that may be. That is the first job, relinking, or the first function. The second job or function is to maintain life. Okay? Once a person is born, just from the point of conception, one can die right then and there, or in the womb, or when the person was born, or any time during a human lifespan, let's say 100 years. So it needs something to maintain that lifespan, to maintain that life. And that is called bhavanga. We have dealt with that topic in the past. The job is to maintain life. Bhavanga. And what is this bhavanga? It's the combination of two words. Bhava is life and anga is part. This bhavanga is a part of life. Part of life. Each bhavanga consciousness job or role is to sustain life. As long as this consciousness is repeatedly arising, a being is alive. Once it ceases to appear, a being is dead. So it needs bhavanga. Bhavanga maintains for the continuation of life. That's why in some cases it's translated as life continuum. And this bhavanga is the result of karma, and also it is identical to the rebirth consciousness. Rebirth consciousness is the first consciousness that appears at the point of conception. And after that, bhavanga, a series of bhavanga follow as long as one lives, because that's the one that maintains a life. These two consciousnesses are identical. Okay? Rebirth consciousness and bhavanga consciousness are identical in qualities. However, it has a different function to perform, and at different time. We all know rebirth consciousness performs relinking, and bhavanga consciousness performs maintaining or sustaining life. Two different functions. And rebirth is at the first moment of conception, and Bhuvinga is after that, different time. That's the difference. It constantly arises and passes away throughout a lifespan, except when active consciousness takes place. In other words, it substitutes the bhuvinga at a certain condition. At that moment, there's no bhuvinga. Instead, there's the active consciousness. Bhuvinga is the passive consciousness. If you want to remind yourself in detail, go and listen to the Theravada Buddhism series, Dhamma Talk 31. And that's how you can remind yourself in a more complete way. Okay, the third job or function is turning or adverting. Turning or adverting process of the bhuvinga consciousness to active consciousness. In Pali, it's called avijjana. Avijjana. We have just talked about that in the past second function. There's bhuvinga, arises all the time throughout life, but except when an active consciousness took place. So just imagine it's like your DNA coding. They go repeat again and again and again and again, and sometimes it is break by the different code. Just like that, bhuvinga mental code is vibrating, and sometimes it is replaced by the active consciousness code. Turning or adverting occurs when an external physical object or internal mental object presents itself to one of the 5 sense doors or the mind door. Whenever an object presents to those one of the 6 doors, this turning or adverting functions happen. The object strikes one of the 5 sense doors or the mind door. At that moment, it also disturbs or shakes bhuvinga. The proper word is called impinge. Impinge the bhuvinga. But it's easier to understand. It disturbs the bhuvinga, it shakes the bhuvinga whenever an object strikes the sense door. And then bhuvinga ceases after the end of the second mind movement. What it means is when it strikes, it shakes, and then another bhuvinga arises and ceased the end of second bhuvinga. The third one is called arrested bhuvinga. It's gone. So bhuvinga ceased after the end of the second mind movement. And then 5 sense door adverting consciousness or mind door adverting consciousness turns towards the object that strikes. At that moment, bhuvinga is gone, this active consciousness arises, In other words, active consciousness took the place of Pawenga. Okay, three little red knobs on a rope, and after that there's a green knob, and then three little red knobs. It's a string, but they are all different, color-coded. Like that, Pawenga active consciousness operates. After turning function, the following function is to see, hear, smell, taste, or touch through the 5 respective physical sense door. Called seeing from the eye door, hearing from the ear door, and so on. This, I call it sensing function. The function is to sense. This sensing function gives awareness of an object, simply awareness of an object without any other qualities, without adding any other adjectives to that object, simply just aware of the object. That is called seeing or hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. It senses the object that strikes the door. There are 5 sense doors. We all know eye door, ear door, nose door, tongue door, and body door. Those are the physical doors. These doors assist in seeing function, in hearing function, smelling function, tasting function, and touching function. Pusana Kicca, touching function. So there are 5 different doors. So that's why these are considered as a separate function. Each event represents different functions. So before this, we have finished up to the 3rd function. Now we add another 5 functions, 5 sensing function with different doors. So this is the job number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 jobs or 8 functions of the consciousness we have covered so far. The 9th function is to receive the object passed on by the 5 sense door consciousness. 5 sense doors simply grab the object, sense the object. That's all it does. And then pass it on to the next consciousness or the next department to do the job. And the next department job is simply to receive. A postman came and the secretary received the parcel. Just like that. And it is called Sampatichana in Pali. Sampatichana's rule is to receive. And the 10th function or the job is to investigate the object that they just received. Santirana. When they receive the object, now they investigate. It examine or investigate whether the object is necessary or not necessary, likable or not likable, or neutral. That's it, simply investigating. In Pali it's called Itayana. Ita is good. Anitayana, bad. Itamijayana, neutral. In other words, they put into the full conveyor belts. One is a good product, one is a bad product, one is a so-so product. That's all that it does. Santirana. investigating function. And the 11th function is to make a momentary decision. Instantly it make a decision, momentary decision. In Pali it's called vukto. It make a momentary decision on the object that just investigated. Investigation department simply investigate and write factual reports, and the decision department decide what it is. Only now this individual consciousness decides whether this is a pleasant object or unpleasant object or neutral object. They really decided these are the one. Or you can say good, bad, or indifferent. Consciousness that perform the 11 functions mentioned above belong to the wholesome and unwholesome resultant consciousness. Vipaka citta. Kusala vipaka citta, akusala vipaka citta. So all these 11 jobs, a certain number of consciousness does those jobs, and all of them belongs to the resultant consciousness group or category, both wholesome and unwholesome. And all these consciousness, which does these 11 jobs or functions, have a fixed task according to the law of thought process. Thought process operates with a fixed law. Viti in Pali. According to that law, there are certain thing needs to be done. So in other words, it's a fixed job, fixed category, pre-programmed job. Automatic, that's the way it goes. Like an assembly line. Up to the 11th. Now the 12th. The 12th function is actually experiencing the object that has just been passed on from the decision department. Department of decision decide it and pass it on. And when it passes it on, the next department actually experience the object. So, experiencing the object, but not casually, forcefully. And Pali what is called javana, in English translated as impulsion, some translated as swift. There are 55 wholesome, unwholesome, path, fruition, and functional consciousness. These 55, in other words 55 walkers, do this job, do this function according to the given conditions. The exception is of two functional consciousness. There's exception. These two functional consciousness are five sense door adverting. We have discussed fairly recently. And the mind door adverting, avijjana. Those two are not in this javana category, but they are in the vipaka resultant category. Other than those two, everything, all 55 different type of consciousness perform the job of experiencing the object forcefully. I use the word forcefully because when it does the job, it is not just mediocre or lazy. There's a power, there's an energy, and also do it swiftly and quickly. That's why the word forcefully is used. This jhana function is open to free will. The previous 11 job is there's no free will. It is pre-programmed. But here there's a free will get involved on this function. The free will is you experience the object and then you choose to use it wholesomely or unwholesomely. One chooses whether to use that object after its experience wholesomely or unwholesomely. So it is not pre-programmed. At that moment, one decides to do as one pleases. Jhana consciousness operates with, I'll try and use all English words that I know. When it operates, there's a momentum, there's a force. It is swift, fast and quick with power. So in other words, there's a lot of energy involved in the operation of this jhana consciousness because there's volition. It arises and disappears up to 7 times consecutively, not just one. It just arises, disappear, up to 7 times. But it is important to know that it is forceful not because they repeat many times. The reason is some consciousness arises only once and perform its job or function effectively and disappear, never to rise again. Such kind of consciousness are mega citta, path consciousness, abhinya citta, consciousness with mental psychical power. Those arise only once. That's the job. And that's it. And they are very effective. They don't even have to repeat or arise again to do the job. It did the job so well, doesn't have to appear again. Path consciousness. Now, the 13th function, register the object experience. Jhana experience it thoroughly, fully, forcefully, and after that, this department, it registered the experience. In Pali, it's called Tadda Ramana. In fact, they do it for 2 times, not registering once. They register in book number 1 as well as in book number 2. And this registering consciousness follow the jhana swift consciousness. Always follows immediately. And the 14th function or job is to perform cessation or end of life. One word, death. It's a death consciousness. In Pali it's called Sutti. Interesting thing is, this consciousness is identical to rebirth consciousness as well as life-maintaining consciousness, Bhuvenga. They are identical. Rebirth consciousness, Bhuvenga consciousness, and this death consciousness, they are identical in quality. The only thing is the functions, the role they play is different. And here the role it performs is death, because it is the last consciousness that arises in a life of a person, the last consciousness. And then, of course, we all know when it ceases and your karmic energy is still there, it instantly reborn and go back to relinking consciousness or rebirth consciousness. And that's how the life goes round and round. And during the lifetime, there are, in general, let's say 89 consciousness can arise. They may arise partly or fully, depending on the condition. And these consciousness does their job, appear, does the job, and disappear. Another one come in, does the job, and disappear. Just like a big factory doing their own work. As long as this life-maintaining consciousness is appearing and reappearing with active consciousness in between, a person is alive. And once that Bhavanga vibrates or arises for the last time, after that, the person is dead. But the karmic energy continues and bring another life. So, understanding consciousness by its function, by its job, that's what we had just discussed. Understanding consciousness by its functions or job assists us in refuting the self or soul concept, because self or soul is the identity, individuality, personality, never-ending unit. But in here, what we call that never-ending one solid unit is nothing but a series of consciousness doing their job in the factory of samsara. May all of you be able to practice mindfulness insight meditation thoroughly and correctly, and may you be able to experience and understand the concept of non-self as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.